So now I have the absolute pleasure of introducing today's program and keynote speaker, Jeff Hoffman. We had the opportunity to have dinner with Jeff last night and talk about stories. And what we learned is that it's all about the people. And I can't wait for you all to have the opportunity to hear from him. Jeff has a very diverse set of experiences, including being a successful serial entrepreneur and CEO, worldwide motivational speaker, philanthropist, Hollywood film producer, and even a 2015 Grammy winner. In his career, he has been the founder of multiple startups and the CEO of several successful public and private companies. One of his more well-known roles is as the co-founder and former CEO of Priceline.com. Today, Jeff serves on the boards of companies in the US, Europe, South America, Africa, and Asia. He supports entrepreneurs and small businesses worldwide, serving on the global board of directors of Global Entrepreneurship Week, the U.S. State Department's GIST, or Global Innovation Through Science and Technology program, and many others. He also supports the White House, the State Department, and the United Nations on economic growth initiatives focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. Jeff is a featured business expert seen on Fox News, CNN, Bloomberg, CNBC, ABC, and NPR, alphabet soup, and in publications including Forbes, Inc., Time, Fast Company, and the Wall Street Journal. Jeff has received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National CEO Council, along with many other national accolades for his contributions to the field of entrepreneurship. Outside of his work to grow innovation economies across the globe, Jeff serves on numerous charity and nonprofit boards. Today, Jeff will share his global perspective on how we can best support Raleigh, Wake County, and the Triangle's entrepreneurial ecosystem, and how we can continue to drive our innovation economy. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Jeff Hoffman.
Thank you. Thanks. There we go. So, well, thank you guys for having me. I'm really glad to be here. I love this region. I was here for a couple of events. Yesterday, we went over to look at American Underground and meet with some startups in Durham, and we've done the same thing here in Raleigh. We were here last year for another event as well in the startup and entrepreneurial space. So we've been around the last few years sort of watching the growth in the region. But what we're going to talk about today is really what it takes to support, attract, and retain entrepreneurs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's even important, right? Why particularly entrepreneurs? Because it's not really entrepreneurs per se, it's people with this kind of attitude. What we want is people with the attitude to make things happen, to create change, and to fix problems. You can call that entrepreneurs, but I don't really even like the word. What I like is the attitude and the skill set. So let's talk about what it takes for a region to continue to attract those people and to retain those people, right? A lot of parts of the country and parts of the world are really worried about the talent drain. Our most talented people, do they think they need to go live somewhere else to achieve their goals? The answer is no, but we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure they know that. And likewise, to get more economic development, more companies built here and more jobs, we have to be a place that you can attract people to from other places as well. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What does it take to actually achieve that? I'll tell you sort of briefly my background. I've been building companies really my whole life. I'm an engineer by trade, but I only did that for a couple years, and then I left to start companies. But I didn't really leave to start companies. I left to fix stuff and solve problems in the area that I live, right? Wherever you see something that needs improvement, again, the entrepreneurial DNA, and this doesn't matter if you're a startup or you work in a big company. Entrepreneurial DNA is just the attitude of saying, if you see the problem, you solve the problem, and making your community and the world around you better. So I've been doing this a long time. I've launched 8 companies. We sold 2, we took 2 public, 2 of them failed. I told somebody the other day that I wish we had gone to the bank, withdrawn the money, got lawn chairs and lighter fluid, because at least we could have roasted marshmallows or had a bonfire or something, instead of just the way the money actually burned and we never even saw it. And we have 2 companies that are still going. That's obviously, of the companies I've been involved with, that's the one that people know best. But Priceline was a scratch startup like any other startup on a small table with a small group of people without funding. Today it's a business that does, it's a company that does business in 190 countries. So we live through scaling and hiring and staffing and retaining and attracting talent and all those things and building new offices. And today it's a $65 billion company, but it was a scratch startup. A lot of it was built in the region, not here in North Carolina, but in Atlanta. We had a tech center there, and we built a lot of this company in the southeastern United States. You know why? Because the talent was here. Even though our headquarters was in Connecticut, we had a hard time finding talent. And in the southeast, there's a lot of tech talent. In our case, that's what we needed. So we built a lot of the company in the southeast because we could get talent from the Carolinas and Georgia and Florida all around and bring them in. I have, after doing these things, I'm going to just give you a little background to shed perspective on where I'm going to get the conclusions, where I got the conclusions I'm going to reach. I had made a commitment to giving back. I always considered being an entrepreneur not a job, but a privilege, right? Entrepreneurs are people that really get to design their own future the way they want it. And when my friends used to say on a Sunday night, I have to go to work tomorrow, I always used to say, I get to go to work tomorrow, because I always felt privileged to be an entrepreneur and to be able to actually make change in the community around me and do things that I could look back on and say, we made a difference where we lived. So I made a commitment based on that to giving back. And after all these years of startups, in 2012, I said I was going to I'll tell you guys, it was a social experiment that I just didn't tell anybody. For 2012, I wanted to give back, and I was going to give back by mentoring entrepreneurs and helping other people launch whatever they wanted to launch and fix whatever they wanted to fix. And so my grand social experiment was, I said for 1 year, for 2012, I'm going to try, just didn't tell anybody, I'm not going to say no to anybody that asks me for help for a whole year, which means I won't go to work for the whole year. I won't be in the office. And wherever the next phone call or email comes, if someone says, can you help me? The answer will be yes for 1 year. Well, it turned out to be an absolutely fascinating year. And I started getting calls from around the planet. So I decided that I got interested in how does entrepreneurship and cities and regions and ecosystems, how is this working all over the world? So I decided to take that year and turn it into a world tour. It turned out that it took a lot more than a year. The world is apparently larger than I thought, which is sad for a travel guy. And it took me the last 3.5 years, I've just been traveling the US too, but all over the world, visiting ecosystems. Where does entrepreneurship flourish, right? And what do those areas do to build ecosystems for startups and for job creation and for economic development? So I've spent 3.5 years visiting. In fact, I just came back. I just kind of gave a conclusion talk at the United Nations last week. So that's where I was before here about global entrepreneurship to a gathering at the UN. And I'm on the way, literally when we finish here, down to South America. We have the Global Entrepreneurship Congress. We have investors and entrepreneurs and governments from 158 countries that are gathering the next 2 days and the rest of this week down in South America to discuss exactly what we're discussing today. So I'm going down there to be the speaker at that event right when I leave here today. So in all that process, I went around and, like I said, started visiting cities and governments. And, you know, I was blessed enough to get to do this from the bottom up and top down. In some of these places, I was literally with prime ministers and presidents and even kings and queens in some countries. And, you know, all the way to the other end where I was recently, you know, so I just did a trip to Tunisia, North Africa. It was their Revolution Day. And Tunisia was the country that launched the Arab Spring, the first revolution. So I went over there and you know, on one day I was with their prime minister, and on the next day I was sitting in the dirt with a bunch of Tunisian kids. And then everything in between, visiting universities, visiting mayors of towns, trying to understand, again, what do we need to do to make this thing work? We even did a grand experiment along the way during these couple years off where we got this idea. And a lot of this, I'll talk a little bit sort of about this millennial generation, right? Because their numbers are taking over. And that's talent that we need to retain before they go somewhere else and attract more of. So we had an experiment to see sort of their attitude about this. And we got this crazy idea to charter a ship. The idea was this: what if we chartered a ship and sailed it around the world, you know, loaded with young people from all over the world? the millennials from all over the world, exposed them to the world's problems, and then just stood back to see what they would do. So that's the ship in the harbor. We chartered a research ship. We actually did this. We literally sailed around the planet Earth. We circumvented the globe, stopping at countries along the way. We got young people from all over the world. They had to submit a 3-minute video. Tell us why you deserve to be on this ship. And we just picked the ones that convinced us. And we sailed around the world showing these young people the way the rest of the world lives. We got it really good here in this county, right? We live very, very nice. I was out walking on the street out in front of the hotel. Went out walking out a little bit when everyone was sitting outside eating at those local restaurants in the streets. This is just nice living. But the rest of the world isn't so lucky. So we wanted to see this generation, if they would put their money where their mouth is and really, really act. So that was an amazing experience. Trapped on the ship for all these months with these people, sailing around the world, trying to figure out economic development problems everywhere and what you could do about them. And these kids were amazing. I've been doing meetings like this. I've been asked by a lot of mayors and city councils to come visit regions. These are some of the cities that I've gone to recently to look at economic development, but specifically startups and entrepreneurship and job creation. Part of how I got involved with the White House was when they did this report. The report's now a couple years old, but you probably remember it. So the White House, the study came back and said that 80% of all new jobs created in the United States in the last 5-year period were created by startups. The definition was not size. The definition was companies less than 5 years old. So brand new companies, by definition, they're probably not that big yet. Companies less than 5 years old had created 80% of all the new jobs in the United States, the total new jobs in a 5-year period. Now check this out. Net new jobs, that was gross new jobs. But if you net out the jobs that big companies lost, 100% in that 5-year period. This study is now probably 2.5 years old. But 100% of all net new jobs created in the U.S. over that 5-year period were created by companies less than 5 years old. So why do we need startups and entrepreneurship? Because they're the ones moving the economy. They innovate, they solve problems, they're lean, they're efficient. I thought it was funny when that book, Lean Startup, came out. That was actually a college classmate of mine, because we were all broke anyway. We didn't actually need to be told to be lean. We couldn't even eat, right? So I read this book. I said, that's ironic because we can't afford the book, Lean Startup, right? Entrepreneurs are lean by definition. They don't have any money. So they solve problems fast and efficient because they don't eat otherwise. That's a pretty good model to have. And so we've been looking at where it works in different cities and what works and how. So I just kind of wanted to, I'm going to share results with you. I also work on these economic development issues with our government, but it gives me a chance to see a lot of cities around the country and see the initiatives and see what's working. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Like I said, why does this even matter? And I almost don't like the word entrepreneur for the reason I said before. When people hear the word entrepreneur, they think that it's somebody starting an internet company. And I hate that, right? The movie, The Social Network, the Facebook movie, that was the worst thing you could do for entrepreneurship. Because the attitude it gave was start an internet company, try to create the next Facebook, and try to become a billionaire. Even that song, I Want to Be a Billionaire, came out of that, right? And it's a horrible message to send. Entrepreneurship is something completely different than starting an internet company to get rich. Entrepreneurship is simply the attitude, initiative, and skill set to make things better where you live, to solve problems, right? To launch companies, not to get rich or to launch for the sake of launching a company, but because there's some need you saw that needed to be addressed and you were the one to address it. So therefore, this entrepreneurship term can also extend to people that work in big companies. The intrapreneur term. It's an attitude and a skill set. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. It's not, I'm going to go start the next internet company. It's worse for me because we actually did go start an internet company. And so it doesn't help when I'm trying to say that's not what you're supposed to do. We happen to have done that. But probably much more importantly is all the civic things we did. You know, when we created a company from scratch that became a $60 billion company, our company during all that time was a really good citizen and did a lot to give back to the communities that we work in and build things where we live, using the success of our company to do that. So as I mentioned, entrepreneurship matters, right? We need more startups. If startups are creating all the new jobs in the economy, then we want them. And we want them addressing problems faster than governments and faster than big companies can. And by the way, one of the things we'll say is, it's not separate groups. Part of what I'm going to talk to you about, I'll give you a hint now, a slide coming up talking about how governments, big companies, and startups should be working together, not three separate organizations or industries. We'll talk about that. But I have to tell you, this is my fundamental belief just in life, that if you want to make the world a better place, this is what I've learned on this 3.5 years going country by country. I firmly believe this. If you want to make the world, the triangle, any area a better place, you unleash armies of entrepreneurs. So what is the responsibility of all of us in this room? It's to arm them, feed them, train them, mentor them, fund them. Our job is we're the support staff for this army of entrepreneurs. We have to get them ready and enable them. They will go fix things. They will make things better. They will improve everything around them as long as we help them do that. I have now seen that absolutely everywhere. I'll throw in something actually I wasn't planning to talk about, but in this process, I went and visited, for example, all the Arab Spring countries to see what happens post-revolution. And I'm going to talk about one of those in just a second. But at the end of that, then I went to Israel. And because Israel's called the startup nation, right? They have more startups per capita there and more successful companies than any country in the world. That little tiny country you can't even find on a map. And I went there to say, what are they doing? Why do they have all these startups? So I was studying that economy as well. But I got a chance to spend a day with the Israeli President Shimon Peres. And it was interesting because I almost half jokingly, you're with a guy like that, right? And I said, what's the key to Middle East peace? Jokingly. And he said, the answer shocked me. He said, entrepreneurship. And I said, wait, what? And he was totally serious. He said that the reason we have so much conflict in the world is because there's so many people with nothing to lose. No job, they're angry, they just have nothing to live for, right? They're in the streets, unemployed, baking in the sun and looking for someone to blame. He said, if more people in the world had a good life, they'd stop blowing up their own neighborhoods. That actually made complete sense to me. What is entrepreneurship? It's the tool set you use to build yourself a better life. What if we went and helped more people in more places here in our own country, help them help themselves so they could create a better life? We'd probably have lower crime rates. We'd have less strife and we'd have less conflict because there'd be less unemployed, angry people that have nothing to lose. That lesson really made sense to me in our own streets, in our own neighborhoods, in our own cities as well. So I mentioned before that what entrepreneurship is not. But I want to share with you guys a story about kind of how I learned the lesson about what entrepreneurship is. Because what we're going to talk about today is what do they need and how do we support more startups and more entrepreneurship and more innovation right here in the Triangle. So I thought that entrepreneurship, when it was first introduced to me, obviously is people think of it just as starting a business. It's more focused on the business part of it. But I'll tell you what it's not. The reason to become an entrepreneur is not to start a business. The reason to become an entrepreneur is because you want to be one of the designers of the future of Raleigh or Durham or the Triangle or Wake County or wherever you live. I started to realize that the most successful entrepreneurs, it was about self-determination. They wanted to design the future of the place they live. They weren't starting. There are plenty that do, but the most successful entrepreneurs, their stories never started with, I just started a company hoping I could get rich. Their story always started with some commitment to change and impact around them. And if they did it well, they got paid anyway. So I want to tell you how I learned that story, that entrepreneurship is really about self-determination. So our job is not to teach people how to start internet companies. Our job is to inspire, encourage, and teach people how to self-determine, how to design their own future, and more importantly, to teach them that they can. To tell people that, if there are things you don't love about this area, change them. It's your town, it's your city, it's your county. Talk to us. Let's change the place together. That's the attitude that we're trying to brew. So I want to tell you a story. As part of I don't know if you can see in the upper left there, the pyramids of Giza. I'm standing not far from the Sphinx and the pyramids this day. So as part of Obama's, the work that I do for the White House, Obama's Cairo speech after the Egyptian revolution, with the Obama pledge, we will help. Well, we turns out to be people like me standing in the dirt of Egypt, actually teaching people. So this is the White House assignment I got, right? Which was go to Egypt and teach post-revolutionary Egyptians entrepreneurship. So I go over there to do my job. And if you think about it figuratively, you know what, I got to tell you guys something that I don't usually share. This is the one moment I almost died. Last night at dinner, we were talking about eating crazy foods in crazy places and being careful you don't get sick. That never killed me. And you know, the danger in some of the war-torn. I was on the Syrian border very recently. I was never afraid of that. This is the day I almost died. I'm sorry I'm diverting, but I got to tell this story. 10 seconds after that photo was taken, that camel, the guy let go of the rope, that camel swiveled around. I looked up in the sun, and the camel, we were nose to nose. And I opened my mouth and went, ah, because it startled me. I hate to tell you guys this. As soon as I opened my mouth, the 40-foot black tongue went straight in. Okay? So I started screaming, right? Shove the camel away. I am spitting in the dirt and wiping my tongue off. All the Egyptians are laughing. I am saying I am going to die right now of camel disease, the thing French kissed me, right? And all they can say is, that's weird, they never do that, right? Everybody's saying, so you see those cars back there? I was running to get something. I ran to the car back there, and I found a bottle of hand sanitizer, right? And I squirted it in my mouth. And the guy picks up I squirted the whole thing. And I'm spitting and spitting, and the guy picks up the bottle, and he says, it says here, do not ingest. I said, I'm pretty sure it said that on the camel too, but I ingested that. The whole night, every time my stomach made a little sound, that's it. I should call my mom. I'm about to die of camel disease. Needless to say, that camel did not kill me, but that picture just reminded me of that moment. So I'm in Egypt, and I'm selling entrepreneurship, and I'm pushing my cart figuratively, right? I'm walking around saying, entrepreneurship, who wants some? Come and get it. And no one wants it. It's like the Egyptians are dodging bullets and saying, could you call back after dinner? We're in the middle of a revolution right now. And so I just felt dumb. So I parked the cart, and I said, no one wants to be an entrepreneur. People don't want entrepreneurship. This is important because that's not really what we're selling here or what we should be selling when we leave here. So I went walking around. There was a young Egyptian girl. And I said, okay, you know, no one wants entrepreneurship. And I said, what do you want? Tell me about your life. And she said, come with me. So we walked down to Tahrir Square where that picture is. And she points down at the concrete. It's just concrete. And she said, right here. And I said, right here, what? And she said, right here, I held my brother in my arms while he bled to death the night of the revolution. He said, the soldiers shot him in the throat, and I held him while he died here. And I was just dumbstruck. My heart just hit the ground. And I was standing there, and then she got up, and she said, oh, Mr. Hoffman, can I show you my startup idea? And I said, can I catch my breath? And I said, how on earth do you go from that to this? And she said, you don't understand. She said, that's why we did that. She said, I was out there that night too. We fought and put our lives on a line, and some of them gave our lives for the right to design our own future. And that's when it hit me. I said, so tell me what you want. She said, I want to design the city my kids are going to grow up in. I want to design their future, their life, their school systems, the rules. I want to work with the law and the city. She just wanted to design a future for her kids that was better than the one she had. And that was the day I got it, right? And so when I came back here, that was no different than when I was walking down the street in Detroit. And somebody that lived there said, I don't want to grow up in a place like this, but it's home and I don't want to leave it, so let's fix it. That's what I hear from people right here. And it doesn't have to be bad to fix it. Every place needs improvement. But what entrepreneurs want, and what our own, especially millennial generation wants, is that they want to be part of the future of this region, not read about it in the paper and see you guys in this room on TV, especially government. They want to be part of the process, and they're going to be anyway. If we don't let them do it here, they'll go somewhere else to do it. Entrepreneurship is about designing the future. If we attract and retain problem solvers and let them solve problems, they will solve it faster and frequently much more cost effectively and efficiently than we could probably do it on our own. So we need this attitude, and we need these people here in the region to do it. So let's talk about what we need and who they are. And I fundamentally believe this. I started to notice something about world-class cities. They have world-class citizens. It's not so surprising that they're world-class places to live because they breed that kind of attitude in it. So what is, for us, for this region to continue, and by the way, I have to tell you, compared to a lot of places I've spoken, you guys are doing really well. We're going to talk about this. So I was telling Morgan when the first time she called me, it would be easier to do this if you guys were doing a really bad job, but you're not. You're doing a really good job. This is one of the best regions and counties in the country for supporting entrepreneurship, startups, and innovation. But nonetheless, there's still room to improve, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So part of it, again, the premise is for us to be a world-class city, we need world-class citizens. So who are these citizens? Now I'm going to talk about this whole next wave, this whole generation, because they are a generation unlike any we have ever seen before, right? This is the first generation in human history raised entirely on technology and raised on this amazing new thing called social media. So what's the difference? The difference is all generations before that, most of what you knew was what was around you, right? It's what you saw. What does a city look like? A neighborhood, the one I grew up in. That's the one you know. That's all you know. What changed in a social media generation was all these people started comparing notes. No generation ever had that opportunity before. So it's a kid in Raleigh talking to a 20-something in Croatia, saying, really, you guys have that? Really, you guys have that? You do this, they let you do that? We have a social media generation where they're comparing notes, and they're not ever willing to stand for anything that doesn't make sense. By the way, when I went to all these Arab Spring countries, you know what caused all those revolutions? Millennials, right? That were on things like Facebook, comparing notes and looking at each other's photos and saying, that's not fair. How come their city lets them do that and ours doesn't? So social media is in a connected generation. We can't go back. It's driving change, and they don't have to believe us anymore because everybody has a phone, a camera, and a social media account. So they say, I understand what the media told you, but here's what it really looks like. What I love now is whenever there's a hotspot anywhere in the world, I generally, from these trips I've done, know somebody there. I don't turn on CNN or Fox. I immediately go online and say, show me what's really happening right now, and they stream it to me live. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Periscope. Periscope's a live streaming app on your phone. They'll Periscope something. They'll say, Jeff, we're standing in the middle of it right now. Here's what's really happening. And I watch this stuff. Then I turn on the news and say, you got to be kidding me. Because the media version of what's happening is obviously, as we know, not always really what's happening. So here's the thing. We have a generation of people that know what the world really looks like, how it really works, and they're comparing notes. So they know. They're finding out what works. They're asking each other, well, what did you guys do in your city to fix that? How does your school system work? What does your university do? What does your mayor approve, not approve? It's amazing, but it's amazing good because they want to make change, they care about change, and they're capable, unlike previous generations. But there's a lot of things about them that are different that we have to understand. So first, let me talk about the obvious for entrepreneurs, and then we'll come back to just citizens in general, this whole generation. First thing they need is inspiration. We were talking about this yesterday and last night. I'm meeting and working with some of your entrepreneurs here. In fact, I've been working for a couple of years. Jess, just stand up for a second. With Jessica Ekstrom. She has a company called Headbands of Hope. This is a Raleigh entrepreneur who's been featured on the Today Show. That's not bad for economic development. When things like the Today Show and on which other media did you get? Vanity Fair and other national media is featuring one of Raleigh's own entrepreneurs and talking about the great things that she's doing in doing this. So in working with people like Jess and listening, one of the things, the first thing we have on here is inspiration. People aren't told that entrepreneurship is a career choice. By the way, my entire life, I was told the following: what's wrong with you? Why can't you get a job like everybody else? Because entrepreneurship, well, in fact, one day a school called me. This one was in Atlanta and said, could you come to Career Day? And I said, I don't have a child in your school. They said, no, we want you to come to Career Day as a speaker. I said, obviously you called the wrong number because I don't have a career in your definition. Career Day is doctors, lawyers, and nurses. In fact, when I was a kid, to be an actual astronaut, that was like the coolest thing ever. But they said, no, we want you to come and talk about entrepreneur as career. And I said, when do you guys recognize that? Because an entrepreneur used to be someone who clearly just didn't fit in anywhere and was trying to find something to do on their own. Entrepreneurship is a career choice, right? By definition, we need to tell people that one choice is to get a job, the other choice is to make one. But we need to say that and encourage more people. If you don't like what's around you, start something of your own. Create your own company, create your own job, create your own industry. So we as a region need to tell people that entrepreneurship is a career choice, and we heartily support it. Education, we're doing well at. I got a couple slides already, but we need to provide entrepreneurial education. Infrastructure is an important one. I got a slide on each of these. Matter of fact, let's do that instead. We talked about inspiration, which is an awareness campaign. Do we say these words? I don't know, I'm asking that rhetorically. Do we say anywhere where I drive around and see a sign that says Wake County loves entrepreneurs and we're building you a great home? Explicitly, we say, hey entrepreneurs, we love you and we want you here. It's an awareness campaign that tells entrepreneurs, this county loves you and we want more of you and we understand you and we're here to help you. The parts of the country and the world that say that explicitly, entrepreneurs want to be welcome in some place where they don't feel like the misfits. Education is pretty straightforward, but it's partnering with our universities. You guys are doing a really good job of this in all the universities in the region. I actually remember getting a call a few years ago Duke was the first university in the entire country to offer a JD, a law degree in entrepreneurship specifically, when that program came out. So that was another area that you had leadership in the local area and the region when they announced that program. But all the universities are doing a lot of great things to support education. We're doing well on that one. Infrastructure. Here's the part where I think, and I got a couple of slides on this, that we really need to get more involved. They want to be involved in the design of the city and the operation of the city. Previous generations didn't. The skepticism, you might say, a typical entrepreneur, you know, my friends, when they find out I'm an advisor to the State Department stuff, they say, wait, you're an entrepreneur, you're the last guy I thought would be working with government. Okay? This generation of entrepreneurs wants to be part of the solution. Right? So they actually want, I was asking a recent city council and mayor this, I said, we have Take Your Kids to Work Day. Have you guys ever tried Take an Entrepreneur to Work Day? Have you ever, you know what, entrepreneurs are skeptical of government because they don't know how it works. They're not born to hate it, they don't know how it works. Have we ever had a day at City Hall or at the mayor's office where we literally said it's Entrepreneurship Day? Come spend the day with us and we're going to show you how the government runs? Because we tried that in some other cities. The entrepreneurs said, I didn't even know you had those restrictions. I thought you were just inefficient. Now I understand that you've got a different structure than they did. They said, we thought you guys just didn't do anything all day. And we brought them down. We had taken Entrepreneur to Work Day, and they said, we didn't know you operated in this environment. Now that we understand it, we can probably help you with these things. And so forming partnerships between city and state government and entrepreneurs and letting them be involved in the decision making and inviting them to things they're not invited to. Their career paths are very, very different than they ever were before. Now I'm talking about how do we retain them in our companies and attract these people, keep the ones we have. Let me tell you what's different. In the old days, the question was, I would give you a job description. An interview was, here's the job description and here's the salary. If you do this list of things on this sheet of paper, you will get this paycheck. And you know you're fired. Right? That was the old way. Today, they don't even want to see the job description and the paycheck. They want to know what the company's values are before they even consider working for you. They care about companies with values. They want to know not what their job description at their desk all day is, but what experiences they have. Is there a corporate challenge in the city that companies participate in? Are there civic activities? Are there charitable activities? What experiences will I have in addition to going to work every day? They care about this generation of employees. We've been studying this a lot. Here's another huge one. They're calling it the gig economy. The old way was, I'm not going to hire you unless I know you're going to spend your career here. Because if I thought you were going to leave in 3 years, I wouldn't waste my time training you. That attitude no longer works. None of today's talent will commit their career to you. What they want is, for the next few years, I want some really cool experiences. I want to be a good citizen in the community. I want to participate in stuff. So the gig economy is project-based. All of the innovative companies, the Googles and Apples, they don't run on careers anymore. They run on projects. When you come in, I hire you to be on the iPhone 7 project. It's going to take 3 years. You're committing 3 years to me. During those 3 years, we'll go on a trip to Costa Rica with the iPhone 7 development retreat team. We'll do things in our community. You'll learn new skills. At the end, when the iPhone 7 is delivered, you're free to go. What I hope is you had such a great time you sign up for another project. The gig economy, they will not commit their career to you, so quit asking. What they'll commit is a project to help you build a world-class product during this project if you can give them something more than their paycheck in return. Experiences. Nowadays, when I'm interviewing people, they don't even start again with the paycheck and the job description. They say, tell me about Raleigh. Are there nightclubs? Is there music? Are there venues? Are there outdoor festivals? Are there restaurants outside? Is there music outside for free sometimes? They ask all these cultural things about dining, about music, about cultural. They care about the housing that you're building. Is it the kind of place they would like to live, their friends would like to live? They always ask you about green. Are there bike paths? Are there parks? Are there green areas? This generation asked stuff that other ones didn't. They cared about their job description and how long it will take to get to VP and how much they paid for that. This generation, the salary is a piece of an overall experience. We have to sell the region. We have to sell the county, the city, not just the job anymore. No matter what company it is, they want to know, well, am I going to like living in Raleigh? And if I am, then I'll consider, now you can show me the job description. But if I don't even want to live there, I don't even want to look at your company. I'm not going to waste the time. They care about those kinds of things. This is interesting. Kids use this, right? They watch a lot more TV and series, Game of Thrones or whatever it is they watch these days. So much more people, they're used to this. But I kept hearing this word. We want a story arc. You know what a story arc is? It's feeling like you're part of a developing story. They don't want to watch the news and hear what you people are doing for the future of Wake County or Raleigh. They want to be in it. They want to tell their kids, I was part of the design of the Raleigh you see today. I was included. And I was part of it. Story arc is being part of the growth of the city and being part of the decision making of the city. They care about that. They'll go to a city that lets them be part of the story, not one that just lets them watch the story on the news. Then they want a brand. Okay, and I want to talk to you about this. They want to be proud of the city they live in. You know what's a brand? I just want to tell you really quick. A brand, we're not going to go into this much, but a brand consists of two pieces. The reason I'm telling you that is I know you're working on it, but we need to be really focused on the brand of this region. So I'll give you an example. A brand asset is what is the single best thing? What stands out the most? Let's just stick with Raleigh. What defines Raleigh? If I ask you to give me one word about why you love Raleigh the most, what is that one word? What is the thing that everybody, when they think of Raleigh, thinks of? The best cities have a brand. Look at Austin, which is now the #1 city, not Silicon Valley. The #1 city in the country for entrepreneurship and startups is Austin. If you've been there recently, they're all wearing that t-shirt. What does it mean? It doesn't matter. It's a personality. Every restaurant, every billboard, every t-shirt says, keep Austin weird. They have a brand to distinguish themselves, to make you feel like you're part of it, to make people remember Austin. What do you think of when you think of the Silicon Valley area? It has a brand, right? It's had movies. There's a TV show called Silicon Valley. Orlando is family vacations. New Orleans is a party town. I was just recently in Boulder, and they're all about green and bike trails and mountain climbing. Cities, great cities, have a brand. There's something you think of when you think of that city. I will ask us to keep refining. By the way, I have no idea what the word is. What is a person that lives in the triangle? Can someone tell me? Huh? Okay, but even pick a city. What are you here? What is Raleigh? A Raleigh what? A Raleigh? Did you all say that? Okay. Anyway, what is the brand? When you define somebody, here's what you want. You want to get to a point brand-wise where you meet somebody and you say, she's probably from Raleigh. Why? Because she exudes whatever Raleigh is. I don't know what that is, but the most successful cities have that. They have a brand and they have a personality. When you meet someone, you nod and say, yeah, that guy's from Austin. He's from Silicon Valley. She's from Raleigh. You want to build that type of brand and personality. That's what they care about. So we're doing this already. You guys are doing it well here with your branding campaign, but I just want to reiterate how important it is that we keep doing it. We're doing a really good job of this. I'm going to close with a few things of what we need to do to win here. Create more collaborative workspaces and incubators. Here's what Silicon Valley did that everybody can learn from. They have no patent on creativity or anything else. You don't need to live there to do anything. However, they invented something we all need to learn from. What Silicon Valley did was socialize business. I have this theory that we call kinetic collisions. Kinetic collisions are what happen when you put people whose paths would never otherwise cross in the same place at the same time and step back to see what happens. What Silicon Valley did was create these events where they invited everybody from government people to bankers, investors, entrepreneurs, professors. They would gather everybody and throw them in a room and just let them go and see what would happen. Relationships formed, ideas gel, partnerships formed. They socialized business. Really interesting that I was talking to Howard, the founder of Starbucks. And I was talking to Howard recently about a project that we were doing together, a charity. But I just mentioned, I said, congratulations on, inventing coffee, basically, at Starbucks. And he said something interesting. He said the innovation was not coffee. He said, that's not what made Starbucks successful. I said, what was your innovation? He said, I created the first restaurant in the country that you can sit in all day without ordering anything. He said, you can have your business and have 6 meetings for your company in my restaurant and not buy anything. We were the first restaurant ever to socialize the workplace. Right? Why do people hang out at Starbucks? Because it's their office. They can have meetings all day and they're not forced to order anything. Do they? Of course they do. But he said, my idea was to socialize business and just grab a cup of coffee while you're doing it. Silicon Valley did the same thing. The cities that work best have more and more opportunities for kinetic collisions. They have more places for people to work together. This city is already in the Forbes top 10 list. I listed some of the ones here. but you're doing a great job already. Raleigh is already a top 10 leader in creating more collaborative workspaces, but I just want to tell you, keep doing it. Because innovation happens, again, when interdisciplinary people that don't normally talk to each other are in the same room and form teams. Normally, they're never in the same room. They're in their part of town, in their office building. Keep putting them together. That's why we need more events, right? You sponsor events where you invite a mix of people who don't know each other. You come in and the business people are in suits and ties, and the entrepreneurs are in jeans and flip-flops. They're on opposite sides of the room. Break that barrier, right? Tell everybody to come in jeans, and everybody, while they're in the room, you got to meet at least 3 people you didn't know when you came in. The places that promote events and get more people to start meeting each other, you may run a very successful big business, and you're going to meet some entrepreneur at one of these mixers, and you're going to say, holy crap, I could use that solution in my company right now. We don't even have a fix for that problem. There are lots that happen when we do that. That's the kinetic collisions we just talked about. You have talent, unbelievable talent here, and you're generating more and more talent. Again, second most educated city in the country. You got the code schools, you got great colleges and universities. Your talent is here, but get exposure to them. Invite them to visit your businesses. Big companies should also have invite an entrepreneur to Workday. Open your doors and let them come in and see what you do. Encourage, we're doing a good job of this here too. I've met a lot of local investors every time I've been here. But continue to encourage local investment in the seed round. Right? Once companies start to take off and they're big, everyone in the country wants to invest in them. But what you need to do is give them a start. What they need is that early seed money that's only going to come from someone else in Raleigh that cares about Raleigh and cares about what they're doing. We've got to seed some of these efforts. You're doing a fantastic job raising money. $300 million the last 3 years have been raised in RTP. Look at that funding growth. Startup funding in North Carolina grew 122%, 4th most in the country in IPOs. And look at the acquisition number. The last 5 years, this region has had $9 billion worth of acquisitions. You guys are getting it done better than most places in the country, but keep doing it. Keep on seeding and funding these efforts. By the way, that means taking risks on the talent that you have here in town. Attract talent to the quality of living, we talked about that. I just used that Boulder example because when I was in Boulder, I made one semi-judgmental comment about Boulder and I almost got beaten to death. Everybody that lives there vehemently defends the Boulder way of life. I said, I wasn't even sure what it was. Everybody there can answer it. So if I asked them, what is a Boulderite? What defines a Boulder person? Everybody knew the answer to that. And I said, why do you guys live here? Everybody knew the answer to that. That means it's not for everybody, but they've well defined their brand. They have a fierce pride for the Boulder way of life, and the talent is attracted and retained there. They can sell their city really well. Why would I start my next company in Raleigh? Right, Andy, if that's the answer to the question. Some cities do that really, really well. Investing in physical infrastructure, that's important. Once again, you guys are already doing that. My compliments again. You already have projects in Google Fiber and an AT&T Fiber. A lot of cities, like it was a huge deal when Kansas City was the first Google Fiber city. But they made a big deal of telling the entrepreneurs in Kansas City, we are going to build you everything you need to launch your company right here. So they were the first ones to do that. You guys are doing a very good job of that as well. Probably one of the, I think I'm almost done here, one of the last things I want to tell you is celebrate your heroes. Because here's what happened. I come here, I've been here 3 times in the last 2 years to this area. And every time I meet some other entrepreneur that I'm blown away by. And I'm like, why did no one tell me you were based in Raleigh, that you're doing this here? You guys aren't even bragging about them. So certainly people outside of the region don't know. Again, what Silicon Valley did that was good was what did they do with entrepreneurs? They made them rock stars. That's a good thing, right? It's obvious that we treat a mayor like a rock star or the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but why don't you pick some entrepreneurs who are changing the world, even if they haven't finished it yet, and celebrate them. Announce those heroes, feature them more, talk to them more, right? When the rest of the city sees how much you value people who are making a difference, people who are making change, and people who are launching companies, they will do it as well. But again, I started to notice that some of the best cities really make heroes out of their local entrepreneurs, and I don't think we're doing enough of that. I keep meeting people that I did not know lived here. I actually know their company, and it's impressive. No one told me they were from Raleigh. Raleigh needs to tell people that they're from Raleigh. Celebrate your heroes and recognize them. You have them. Here's a list of existing companies. Most of the companies in the first thing have already changed names because they were acquired. And then the second one are companies that have been funded under development. You have heroes right here in town. Celebrate them more. Get them media. Right? In Jessica's case, to get on the Today Show, Raleigh didn't really do that. She did that. But it would have been nice if the city could have taken more credit for having one of its own, getting that kind of national attention and promoting her so that they would have shown up here to find her instead of her reaching out to them. You have the heroes here. Public-private partnerships. Here's what I want to tell you about this. I already mentioned Take a Citizen to Work Day. Invite people to visit government. Invite them to your companies. But here's the last part I want to talk about, which is challenge-based innovation. Let me explain what this means. Do some challenges. I'll tell you one for the city and the county, and one for the companies. Make a list of problems in this county, and then hold a challenge where you publicly challenge entrepreneurs to fix a local problem. I just did one of these in Ohio with the city government there, and the challenge was a waste transfer station that was old and falling apart and wasn't working, and it was an eyesore and all these problems, and the city couldn't fix it. So we said, why don't you ask the entrepreneurs? So they issued a challenge, entrepreneurs everywhere, propose a solution for the waste transfer station. The city government opened an office they could come and do research in. An unbelievable set of solutions were created by local entrepreneurs and engineers to solve the city's problem. Ideas they never would have thought of, and they gave away a prize to do that. I don't have the corporate one. The same thing with the corporate one. You have a problem in your company, right? You might run a big company here. Challenge entrepreneurs. Do a public-private challenge. So I'll give you an example one, but put up prize money. So I'm going to give you one quick example, then I'll summarize it in here. We did one, we were trying to show this to the U.S. government. So we did one with NASA. This was when they were building the Mars rover, and I was part of this effort. So here's what we did. NASA was going to design, batteries. There's nowhere to buy a battery on Mars, it turns out. At least we don't know if there is. So they needed to build a solar collection and storage system on the Mars rover so that it could keep recharging itself. So NASA was going to design one. They would have gotten one design from the NASA design team. It would have cost them millions of dollars. What we told them to do was challenge entrepreneurs. So they put out a challenge. Design a solar collection and storage system for the Mars rover. 400 little companies, universities, and big companies. 400 teams submitted designs. They had 400 designs to choose from, not one. They put up a prize of $1.5 million. Now, NASA said on their own team it would have cost them $20 million just to get the design. They put up a $1.5 million challenge. 400 teams around the country submitted us designs. We got to pick from 400. We picked one. We gave them a $1.5 million check. That was life-changing. That was a big deal for them and nothing for NASA. And we got a far better solution. You should do that. Your city, your county, and your companies issue challenges to your entrepreneurs. Say, my company struggles with this. Fix it for us and we'll give you X. For doing that. X is way less than it would have cost you, and you will get unbelievable partnership and solutions. So let's just summarize here. Hope we have time for a couple of questions. We can't make it without them. Entrepreneurs are critical to the economic future of the region. This region is doing really well compared to most of the places I go already. You're a leader already in the country, but we can't stop. We have to, light more fuses and do more to continue to retain those people and attract more. You're doing a great job, but we can still continue to do more. So thank you guys very much for having me today.